in education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want.
Government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa.
Of Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put the idea that let's be clear. I hear it all the time. Cumulative, I can play for the programs many times over.
Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America. Made in America.
Welcome back to another night of Shtick with Koolfrogg. I had a show completely, totally set up for tonight. And as I'm getting ready to be sure that I have everything set correctly, it all changed. It all changed within a moment. It seems as though the human remains were found of Madeline Kingsbury, young lady out of Winona, Minnesota. Very sad to hear that she was found the way she was. It's very disturbing. And I know that it's going to hit this community kind of hard because I know that there's people that are tied into this community that know of this region, and this person in particular was rest in peace to Madeline Kingsbury. Say hi to everybody real quick. Beautiful. I know you're tired. I'll do my best to have a great show. Hopefully you can actually catch it on a replay. Hello, Rose. How are you doing? Good to see you. Hey, Vicky T. Awesome. Glad you guys are here. Like I said, we're going to, start off with this updating news, breaking news out of Minnesota. It is very disturbing in itself and saddening to hear what has exactly happened and what will continue to happen. Hopefully the family gets some closure and this piece of crap can rot for the rest of his life. We'll give her a short moment. All right. Well, this is really difficult to actually take and understand, especially when it comes so close and dear to so many, that this jerk could take himself to the point of not only removing the mother from these children's lives, but he also removed himself. Because now these children don't have their mom or their dad. Thank the judge in Winona County for actually going to the point of actually saying no to Adam when he had actually initially applied for getting custody of these children. Really seriously give it to that judge. That judge really knew and felt something when he actually went to the point of actually doing what he had done to not give custody to this man. I'm not a proponent for taking away custody from anybody. When you go that far and you do that, no, that's too much. It says more than 2 months after 27-year-old Madeline Kingsbury went missing in southern Minnesota, the father of 2 children has been taken into custody following the discovery of human remains. Adam Fravel, 29, was listed as jail roster in Winona County Sheriff's Office Wednesday evening, which notes he is being held on suspicion of second-degree murder. The Winona Police Department announced Wednesday evening that the human remains were found earlier in the day, exactly where the fuck I said it would be. Right along Highway 43 in Fillmore County. Not more than 45 minutes away from Winona in itself. Knew exactly where they were going to be looking. Knew exactly what was going to happen. The second that they said they assumed it was potentially in Fillmore County. As early as April, investigators had zeroed in the area. The Southern Minnesota Regional Medical Examiner's Office is now working to identify the remains. They wouldn't have arrested this asshole if they didn't have great suspicion that he was the one that did this, and that was exactly who that was. Exactly who that was. This piece of shit deserves to rot. He doesn't deserve some kind of penalty. No death penalty in Minnesota anyway. He needs to rot and think about it for the rest of his life and what he did to this young lady. What he did to those children. Those children that were aged 2 and 5 are going to be scarred for the rest of their lives. The 2-year-old may not remember it as much, but you know damn well that those kids miss their mom. It's very disturbing to actually think that this asshole could actually take it to this point of actually doing something so heinous, so disturbing, that he would actually remove somebody else's life. Kingsbury went missing on March 31st after dropping off her children, ages 2 and 5, in the daycare. All of her belongings, including her phone and her wallet, were found in her home. Who leaves their home without their phone, without their wallet, without their own belongings? Absolutely nobody. The van that she drove was parked in the driveway. Sure it was. Early in the investigation, authorities called his disappearance suspicious and involuntary. It's her disappearance. April 12th, about 2 weeks after Kingsbury went missing, Fravel publicly denied any involvement. He said after the kids were dropped off, he left her home in a blue minivan, and she was gone when he returned. During the last 12 days, I've cooperated with law enforcement at every turn, including sitting down with multiple interviews in Winona County law enforcement. I did not have anything to do with Maddie's disappearance. Bullshit, you didn't. I want the mother of my 5-year-old and 2-year-old to be found and brought home safely. I want that more than anything. You lying piece of shit. On Monday, Fravel filed for custody of the children, who was first placed in the county's care until a court moved to have them placed with a relative to a relative foster care with their grandparents. Fravel's request was denied. That judge knew exactly what he was doing. He did that on purpose. He denied it. He denied it over and over again. No way was he going to allow this asshole to get custody of these children and do the same thing to them that he did to this poor young lady. Kingsbury's sister, Megan Kingsbury, released a video statement late Wednesday evening on social media where she said, in part, the whirlwind is just starting all over again. This is definitely a silver lining. We're glad that Fravel's in custody and not walking around a free man anymore. I'm not going to play her thing because it's unfair to her. WCCO News legal analyst Joe Chabarino says real answers in this case are not come for some time. The complaint may give us a window into the evidence might show. The complaint might list the DNA sample. It might list some statements, but basically the bulk of the evidence really will remain unknown for the public until the case is well into trial. Kingsbury's 27th birthday was supposed to be June 1st. Her family asked people across Winona and across the country to put out blue lights to help light her way home. And they did. They did. You know dang well they did, because this is what exactly came out of it. They lit it up, and they actually finally found where she was laying along Highway 43 in the brush, just out the town of Mabel. It's not that far away. It's seriously not. It's super, super close to where I said it would probably be near Rushford or whatever. Mabel's like, if you look at a map, it's right next to it. It's so super close. It's ridiculous. It's so close. I'm shook up because exactly what that is. It's so unfair to her and those children that they have to now go through this the rest of their lives because this asshole felt the need to do something. He did, like I said, deserves to rot. I'm going to actually pull up a map of where Mabel in Fillmore County actually is, and I'll show you where I assume that she was and how far exactly away she was from Winona. So if you take a quick glance here, I'm going to pull this up. This one here. Okay, so we scroll in here just a little bit. Like I said, this hits home for me because I'm from Winona. So 43 comes down, follows the interstate for a short bit, cuts down through here through Rushford, down through Brattsburg, and down to Mabel, where she was found. It's not unheard of for somebody to speed up and down Highway 43 to make it to and from these places into Winona. People live in these bedroom communities and work out of Winona. There's lots of businesses that are actually centered around in Winona itself that actually facilitate jobs for the greater area. And I seriously, for him to actually take 43 all the way through from Winona to Mabel wouldn't take that long. It really wouldn't. Now this from Winona to Rusher is about 45-ish minutes for a drive at the most. You could make it in 30. You can make it in 30, 35 without trying, just by, picking up the speed by about, 10 miles an hour. It's really quick and easy to actually make it through there. Most don't care. Most will actually be like about within that 30, 35 minutes easily. To make it from Rushford to Mabel, again, not that far. It's really not that far. It's another 20 minutes. For this guy to make it back and forth within an hour or two, not a problem. This guy's had no problem being able to actually do this. And it's very, very disturbing to actually think that this can actually be a thing. And my heart really goes out to all of those family members, all those relatives of this particular incident, because, we all know people that are super, super closely involved, and our love goes to you, brother. Hope you can actually get some closure and you can actually feel better about the situation. I know it's rough. I know it's going to take a lot, but I got you. We're here for you. Thanks for reading the UAP story. It's so interesting and crazy. If it all true, I think it is. And for people that don't believe it, I understand if it hits too close to home for you. Looking forward to part 3. Part 3 is going to be next. Because this happened within the last hour that they actually found these remains and gave the update, I felt it necessary to actually do this update and actually get this information out. This information was necessary, and it really seriously hurts to actually believe that this guy was able to do what he had done. Again, rest in peace to this young lady. It's so sad. It's very disturbing. Thank you, Madcore. Thank you so much for that Aussie 20. Appreciate it. Appreciate it so much. Wow, that's really, the dollar's really changed quite a bit since. You see that actual chat revenue from that. It's not the same as I remember it being. Wow. That's a big difference from what it used to be. Amazing. Just amazing. But thank you so much. Let's say hi to everybody here real quick before I actually do move on to the UAP part 3. I just didn't want to feel like I was actually giving this particular subject its disservice. I wanted to actually give it something. And how bad is it now? $13.34 US is that $20 bill that you gave me. But it doesn't matter. It does not matter. Thank you for the donation so very much. So, yeah, holy shit, right? So, UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, story 3, will be the next spot that we actually hit on here. It's not as long of an interview as what part 1 and 2 were. This shouldn't take too long to actually get through. Koolfrogg, 145 wildfires burning in Quebec. No, that's what's hitting, guys. Yeah, no, exactly. I took it out of the headline. It was originally in the headline, as one of the stories that I would actually hit on. I will actually hit on those wildfires when it comes down to it, because yes, that does affect some of us, some of those that we know so very well and we care about. So when it comes down to it, yes, it is something that will actually be talked about. Um, I, I'm trying to keep this in order and trying to keep my composure on this, whatever, because I'm just so frustrated with what had happened to this young lady, and I just I gave her. I hope I gave her a little bit of what she deserved, a little bit of letting everybody else know exactly what happened. So anyway, so unidentified um, phenomena, UAP. Uh, Fact check, question and answer with debrief co-founder and professional investigator Tim McMillan, part 3. Prior to launching a recent story on alleged U.S. government crash retrieval efforts by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Keane, Christopher Plain sat down with debrief co-founder and investigative reporter Tim McMillan to learn about all the fact-checking and background research that was done in the Debrief's investigative team beforehand. The following is part 3 of 3, part transcript of that call, which has been edited for overall readability. Here you can read parts 1 and 2. We did go through parts 1 and 2 yesterday after the initial reading of the article through debrief. Yes, exactly. I appreciate all donations from everywhere. Nobody's dollar's any worse than ours or any better. They're all the same. Worth shit. Worth shit. Because nowadays, that's exactly what it is. So again, Christopher Plain and Tim McMillan, this is their conversation. CP, Christopher Plain, TM, Tim McMillan. CP, Tim, thanks for going through all the fact checking with me there, and how that I came together. I had a few extra questions that came up when I was prepping for this. I was just hoping we could go through them. You mentioned to me on the phone the other day when you first told me about this, and after I got done crapping my pants, that this is different than previous supposed whistleblowers, namely Bob Lazar, I'm sorry, and more significantly, Colonel Corso, who would probably be closer analog to this particular thing. Why is this different than those cases? TM. Sure. That's a great question, and I'll tell you that. Everybody who reads this article is going to take something different away from it. I realize there's going to be a segment of people who read it that will say, walk away and go. Well, this is it. This is just conclusive, absolutely proved that aliens are real. They're visiting Earth and, UFOs or alien spacecraft, right? CP. Yep. TM. There's another segment that is going to walk away from and go, well, this did not provide any real conclusive evidence that aliens are real and UFOs are aliens. This is just somebody's testimony. They didn't provide any photos or videos of the craft or any of that, right? CP. Yep. TM. And end of the day, neither one of those conclusions is true, or more importantly, the intent of this article was never to prove either one of those, but rather we're sharing something that is unprecedented by my knowledge, which is you have an individual who had the agency, had the authority, and was in a position to obtain the information, who is saying that there are these programs, is saying that there's non-human technology recovered, and saying it in official way. And we're reporting on the fact that this person has testified to this under oath to general counsel. So, to attorneys for a Congress sworn that this information is true and affidavits to the Inspector General's office, we're sharing that. CP, that's fair. TM. And I think that's what makes it different. Whereas in the past, you've certainly had people who have made similar claims. They've made those claims in books. They've made those claims in documentaries or television shows or interviewed in podcasts, that type of thing, where there's really no consequence. There's really no official matter um, for it. There's no mechanism. That's not like the government listens to somebody's podcast and goes, "Well, did you hear what so and so said? You better go investigate." So, unlike that, you have somebody who's making these claims that are extraordinary claims in the process that is official, legally binding to the individual who could potentially have access to finding that extraordinary evidence to support that extraordinary claim. So I think that's what makes this so much different. This isn't even just the 2017 New York Times report where they disclosed the existence of AATIP. There you have people like Louis Elizondo coming forward and saying that all this exists. This is somebody who has first disclosed all this information through legal channels to the government, first before it's become public. And so that I think I'm unaware of it wherever being a case similar to that. CP, awesome, great. I had a few thoughts, but you covered them all. So, next question I wrote here is: do these claims lend credence to the infamous Wilson Davis memo? And if proven true, do you owe UFO Joe a meal? TM laughs loudly. No, I don't owe Joe anything. He's a jerk to me on Twitter, laughs again. But it's one of those things. When you look at Wilson Davis or any of them, I'll say, generally speaking, this information and knowing that somebody has come forward and shared it. And if you have have other witnesses who are claiming firsthand knowledge who have shared it, not with us in the public yet, rather to legal authorities, that certainly opens this door that perhaps a lot of things that have been dismissed or have been regulated to folklore, there's some credence to it. Maybe it needs to be re-examined. I know for me personally that certainly is the case. That's one of my biggest issues with this particular topic, is you never have anybody that's saying, I firsthand handled this, I know we have crushed UFOs because I handled it. At least not anybody that can substantiate their background and provide the authority that they could have been in that position to do that. You have a lot of, I heard from somebody else. And in this case, this is very similar to that. However, this is somebody who's sharing the information directly with legal authorities. And then people with firsthand information have purportedly come forward and testified in support of that, to corroborate that. And so that makes it a beast of a different animal, CP. Yep, TM. I don't know what else to say, CP. Yeah, I think that's the right answer. All right. Next question. To my recollection, most famous UFO crash stories include stories of beings or bodies. What do you make of the fact that nowhere in this whistleblower's account are there reports of beings or bodies? Tim, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't spend any time really thinking about that, but it's a good question because obviously there's clearly considerably more information behind this than has even been brought forward. And again, I can't stress enough that the biggest takeaway story here is that someone has come forward in an official capacity to say that these claims are true, but actual specifics of what those claims are outside of them being the recovery of objects of non-human origin. We really don't know what those specifics are, and there's certainly uh, no one during any of my background checks, any of my sources discussed biological recovery of biological beings, that kind of stuff. But it's it wasn't a part of our particular story. Gotcha. The reason I asked. So I don't know. CP, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah, I was just I don't know what that means at this point. I mean, it's already a little bit of shock, the story itself. And so I'm extremely hesitant to theorize on anything. CP. The reason I asked that in this story, it mentions that determinations were made that they were dealing with non human material based on morphology, radioisotope data, material analysis, and other things like that. And again, if there were bodies that were clearly not human, one would think that would be, as my wife and the lawyer would say, more um, dispositive evidence that you're dealing with something non-terrestrial than the morphology. Tim, so sure. Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. Uh, this TM really seriously sounds like he's from Minnesota, and it does raise an interesting point. But at the same time, we do know what aspects of Grush's testimony, or even information that was provided to DOPSR beforehand, was possibly classified, or he was told was not going to be approved. So I don't know that that is one of the things, but there's obviously there's a lot of information still out there, a lot of specifics that haven't come to light yet. CP, excellent. I agree, Tim. Why did the debrief run this story ad free and decide to not make money off the printing of this story? TM, that's really your question. CP, yeah, just between you and me, like one of the critics of the UFO world, as you know, is people are out to make a buck, and here we are with potentially history making story, and we're saying we think it's important enough to Tim. Well, I'll just say that obviously there is some debate and discussion about the area of running ads on it. As CEO, I was thinking money wise, and I'm thinking this is a huge historical, huge potential, and you don't want to lose out on the financial revenue that can be made from it. At the same time, I think the determination was made that we wanted to be able to present the story as cleanly as possible so that people weren't distracted. They could read it, they could synthesize it because of the nature of what is being discussed and what's being revealed. It's obviously really significant. And so we didn't want any of the distractions from the ad side of it. And we didn't want to, oftentimes for very good reasons when it comes to the things unrelated or things related to UFOs or the paranormal is very commercialized, and oftentimes it's infotainment or entertainment rather than news information. And we wanted to present it as a very professional, formal way and not to distract from it. So the decision was made if we would publish it without advertisements for a period of time. And so maybe it cuts against the grain, perhaps from what people are used to seeing with UFO information. So no subscription, no, none of that. Go listen to our sponsors. Here's the information. And I think some discussion was had between me and Micah that perhaps this is the morally high ground or the morally right thing to do. CP. Tim, you mentioned earlier in the article when we talked about DOPSR clearing Grush to go ahead and discuss his claims When you first told me about the story on the phone, you actually mentioned you had a thought about maybe a motivation, or just you had a thought about them going ahead and clearing him to talk. Would you share that with us, TM? Sure. Yeah, I thought it was. It's not just my thought, but it's going. It's some of my background investigations and some of the sourcing I spoke with, especially the legislative side of the House. So the congressional side of things, they were. I was as well befuddled by the fact that the DOPSR had approved this. Typically, the Department of Defense tries to stay away from the media as much as possible in general. But when it comes to UFOs, absolutely. And so, one theory was that, they cleared it because, again, they're going to request the withholding of information that's classified or currently national security. And so it was. You're going to clear this because we're just going to claim that it's not true. You know, that this guy's just making the whole thing up. Of course, because they'll just say it's in the make believe. But that's what makes this case in particular very interesting because if that was the position of the government wants to take, is that it's not true and you're making it up. That they can share these details initially, even before us, under oath in sworn affidavits. It becomes this thing where people can easily say, unlike books that were published in the past or claims that are made on TV, people would say, okay, fine. If he's not telling the truth, charge him with lying, charge him with perjury, charge him with making false statements in the federal investigation. We've seen that in political world. I'm sure most people are familiar. There were a number of individuals during the special counsel's investigation who were charged with making false statements to federal investigators. So if the claim is that Grush is crazy and this is all make believe, then I think the responsible and reasonable response would be to prove it. Charge him with a crime. CP, okay, great. Was there any pushback by any sources during your fact check about any even small points or anything in general? Did you receive any pushback during the fact check process? Or did anything fail the fact checking process? TM, Ralph and Leslie have done a great job. And so when we saw their kind of initial product, or just before the final finished product, it goes through editorial, but their product, they'd already done a really good job and already really fact checked everything. I just independently verified that. Um, and then, in particular, one of the nice things in the case is the fact that it had gone through DOPSR before publication. So obviously, when you talk to sources, nobody's going to want to share it. Nobody is sharing classified information. And so there's always a default when dealing with things of this nature. Any defense or intelligence stuff, it just defaults to classified. So it's easier to not discuss than it is to. But in this case, it was nice because we could show that what we were trying to fact check had already been cleared and not classified or national security information. So people can openly kind of say, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And that's not true. I didn't get any pushback from anybody or anything. Nobody said, oh my God, don't do that. Don't do this or don't publish this. Nobody spoke poorly about Grush or now. Anybody that was in the article, I really didn't get any pushback. And that's important to note that even comes that all this sourcing isn't coming from people who are UFO insiders or UFO enthusiasts. Now there's one unnamed individual that I recommend to editorial be removed. I'm not going to get into specifics, but it boils down to ensuring we are limiting ourselves to named on the record sources for an article of this magnitude. Frankly, there's a ton of info we could have added, but it was from sources just justifiably couldn't be named. But that individual and their quotes was removed prior to publication. CP, gotcha. Damn. People that are in the community, fantastic. This is this Gary Nolan's hornet's nest we were talking about? TM, it looks like it. Obviously, this story, it's hard to keep things under wraps. And so a lot of people have been there, have been whisperers and murmurs about something big coming out for weeks now. And so people knew this was kind of coming to a head. I think that Gary Nolan was one of the people. That information leaked out, oftentimes due to the witnesses you're interviewing. They know somebody, and then that person knows somebody. And so, Gary certainly, it would appear, is somebody who's in circles with some of the witnesses or people that know the witness. I have not spoken to Gary, but I would imagine it's probably a pretty safe bet that this is what he might have been referencing. I know that Ralph and Leslie mentioned, I don't remember the date of it. Maybe it was in 2021 when they did a New York Times piece where we first heard from Eric Davis about off-world vehicles not of human origin. And there's a lot of talk from them in interviews that they had a lot more to that story they wanted to run with. But ultimately, the New York Times decided to not run it. It was your impression that this is that this is what they've been working on for 2 or more years now. Tim, well, no, well, I don't, because a lot of stuff with Grush came in starting in 2022. So I'm not sure that some of it may have been. I don't know. That's one you'd have to ask them. We didn't really get into it, but a lot of the stuff, certainly, in my opinion, when the information was shared, was done after it had already been shared with the Inspector General in Congress. That definitely bolsters it. I'm glad that I came out of this way came out this way rather than the other way around. Because again, when you're a reporter, especially with claims like these, and if these claims are being made to a reporter first, it's definitely going to require much more significant levels of verification that that what's being said is accurate, because there aren't the same consequences than if you're lying in an official capacity. CP. So Tim, this is the last one, and then we're done. This is a question I ask almost every researcher I talk to whenever I'm discussing one of their stories with them, and it's always my final question. If there are any key final point or key idea that you just want to make sure it's gotten across to the debrief readers, as far as how the story came about, the fact-checking process, or even just your own observations, is there any key main takeaway that you think is critical to emphasize here? TM, I think for me, this is not an end game moment. Let me put it that way. So I know some people may determine or feel that way, but there's certainly what this is for me, is certainly especially for people like myself who are really skeptical about anything like this beforehand. This is a huge foothold into this area that there really could be something to it. And just based on this story and the fact that I can't stress enough, the fact that it came out and it's gone through all these official channels, and it's been handled appropriately and officially and very formally. So not anything like entertainment, or certainly suddenly the idea that this is the government, this is that the government could have this material. It could be potential programs could be going on. The foothold of this being true, the foothold of much more firm now, and it'll be exciting to see kind of where that goes from here. But it's hard to predict. CP, yep. TM. I think it's somewhat ironic that this story is getting published on June 5th, because that's the day before the 79th anniversary of D-Day, Normandy Allied landing. And actually, the Allied landings were supposed to be scheduled to take place on June 5th. And so, in a weird way, you kind of wonder, is it similar to a D-Day moment where obviously, when the Allies landed on June 6th, it didn't immediately end the war. There was still a lot of fighting, a lot of sacrifices, um, a lot of battles that lay ahead. But everybody universally knew that once the Allies gained a foothold in the European continent, it was only a matter of time. Like, that was a major hurdle. And so it's interesting with this kind of story. It's interesting to see where it travels from here, and whether we look back on this, was this a D-Day moment? Was this a moment where the idea that a lot of things that we relegate or have relegated to science fiction or fantasy could in fact be true? And this was the moment where that foothold was achieved. That staging area was formed, and it's just the process of any kind of actual confirmation, uh, where there isn't a doubt in anyone's mind. So it's interesting that that's interesting to me. Does it prove that UFOs represent alien spacecraft and the government has UFO technology? No, I mean it doesn't, and I'm the person who fact checked. But it's certainly more reason to explore that possibility now, much more so than before. And just to be clear, because I'm a huge WW2 fan, buff, or nerd, uh, I'd be no means suggesting that this article or this information coming out is in any way comparable to the courage, conviction, sacrifice, or heroism of the Allied soldiers of June 6, 1944, D-Day. Rather, I'm saying that there are always these huge turning points in history that at the time you don't realize just how important they are. Obviously, if what Grush is claiming is true, it is one of the most significant revelations in human history, but we're not there yet. We don't know how it will play out or how history will remember it. It could be drastically different than one might think, no matter which direction those initial thoughts might be leaning. Plus, you know me, I relate everything to military strategy, historical warfare, and art of war. Laughs. CP, thanks for all your time, boss. I need a nap. Tim, thanks, Chris. It was fun. Uh, Kind of interesting how they're like, is this significant? How significant really is it that this information had actually come about? Um, why is it so significant? And if it is significant in any way, state or form, will people actually start waking up to the situation? What is actually happening? Will they actually take some of the stories, some of the um, the science fiction fantasy stuff that had been written previously? Will they take that to the next level, and actually be like, there was a lot of people that told a lot of stories uh, that we didn't assume were true or correct. Would they actually start looking at some of those and actually go back and wonder why these people actually had the mindset or the mind frame to actually come up with the stories that they did? Did they actually come across something or somebody, or from out of this world? There's still a lot of interesting thoughts to go along with this particular subject. Again, thank you, Mad Cormo, for actually bringing this to my attention. Um, very interesting and very thought provoking in itself to actually go through and try to understand. Um, I thought it was fun. I thought it was fun to actually go through that and uh, see where that was actually going to go. We do have some other stuff that we're actually going to cover tonight, as far as regular news goes. I do have about an hour left, and I'm going to move on from this for now. It's going to be something I'm always going to be thinking about, and it's going to be on that back burner of is there something legit that actually came out of this? Um, Check chat here real quick. I had to stop chat on the StreamYard side so I could actually see where it was and follow along. Mike Gohagan, howdy y'all. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. The Clinton body count truly is very interesting documentary. I bet it is. I seen that Good Logic was actually covering that in particular tonight. Um, it'd be something that I might be interested in looking at closer myself to see what actually was how many people are actually involved in different things and why they were actually potentially unalived by these people known as the Clintons. Um, Vegas saw them. LOL. You should do it. Yeah, I was thinking about it. So you just have to actually get and take the time to actually go through some of it and potentially cover it. It might have to be something where I'd have to actually do like an early start to actually get through all of it, because it seems as there's quite a bit of information to go along with that particular subject. So yeah, totally something that I had thought about. I don't know when, so it'd probably be soon, being that I just said something. Hey, Koolfrogg. Hey, Mimsy. Good to see you. Uh, that would be great to cover. Yeah, exactly. It'd be something fun to actually cover. And I take pointers and tips from almost anybody on what they'd like to actually see me cover. That being said, if you like what you've actually seen so far, be sure to smash that like button for me, regardless if you're on YouTube or Rumble. If you don't like what you've seen so far tonight, go ahead, hit that like button and leave a comment down below and let me know why you didn't like it. And we'll see if we can't create conversation out of that as well. That being said, I'm going to actually try kicking this over to a few other topics that seem to be of interest. Um, um, let's go with Bill Barr, this wonderful jerk himself. What's up, Great Liquor? If you're in the Rumble pond, yeah, and nobody's actually said anything off the Rumble side, but that's a great assumption that Great Liquor just might be there, just might be. We'll see if he actually says something in the next few moments. So this come out of the Federalist paper. I know that it was actually on a couple other sites as well. I found it fairly interesting. It says Bill Barr confirms Rep. Jamie Raskin lied about Biden family corruption investigation. Really? Really? This guy, this asshole here. The FBI is attempting to cover up the Democrats are doing their bidding by lying to the American people. Rep. James Coomer told the Federalist. It's not true. It wasn't closed down. William Barr told the Federalist on Tuesday In response, the Democrat Rep. Jamie Raskin's claim that former Attorney General and his hand-picked prosecutor had ended the investigation into the confidential human sources allegation that Joe Biden had agreed to a $5 million bribe. On the contrary, Barr stressed it was sent to Delaware for further investigation. Former Attorney General Barr went on the record with the Federalist following statements Raskin made to the press Monday afternoon, soon after attending a closed-door meeting. The House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer in the FBI, at which lawmakers reviewed FD 1023 form summarizing the CHS's detailed allegation that the Vice President, Joe Biden, agreed to accept money from a foreign national to affect policy decisions. Raskin spoke to the media. What I learned, Raskin claimed, that was that Attorney General Barr named Scott Brady, who is the U.S. Attorney for Western Pennsylvania, to head up a group of prosecutors who would look into all allegations related to Ukraine. After Rudy Giuliani surfaced for allegations, Raskin continued. Brady's team looked into the FD 1023 and in August determined that there's no grounds to escalate from initial assessment to a preliminary investigation, and so they called to an end of the investigation. The Maryland Democrat then reiterated his claim that this was under Attorney General William Barr and his handpicked prosecutor, Mr. Brady, who was Trump appointee. They were the ones who decided. There were no further grounds for investigation. Raskin's claim adding, if there is a complaint, it is with Attorney General William Barr and Trump Justice Department and the team that the Trump administration appointed to look into it. Raskin would then double down on his claim that it was Barr and Brady who closed down the investigation, issuing a press release saying that in August 2020, Barr and his hand-picked U.S. attorney signed off on closing an assessment into the FD 1023 form that memorialized the CHS's claims. But that's just not true. According to former Attorney General, instead of the confidential human sources claims detailed in FD 1023 were sent to Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office for further investigation, according to Barr. That, however, was just one of Raskin's deceptions. The ranking member of the House Oversight Committee was also falsely suggested that CHS allegations were related to the investigation of information Rudy Giuliani had unearthed of the Biden family corruption in Ukraine. No, not so, according to the individual familiar with the investigation, who told the Federalist that the CHS and FD 1023 summary of this statement were both unrelated to Rudy Giuliani and not derived from any information Giuliani provided. This corroborates the House Oversight Committee's representation that June 30th, 2020, FD 1023 stands on its own and was not part of the documents Giuliani provided the FBI in January 2020. In fact, according to House Oversight Committee, FD 1023 in question contains information from the FBI's confidential human source dating back to another FD 1023 generated in 2017, which completely removes Giuliani from the mix. Raskin's office did not respond to a request for comment. Of course, Raskin's office didn't respond to a request for comment. Why would they respond to a request for comment? He's been found out to be lying about almost anything and everything that he's ever done. When he goes ahead and he actually tries bringing up information about this and actually tries pointing fingers in any other way, shape, or form other than at Joe Biden himself, he's been lying. He's been lying over and over again. We all know where the majority of monies have been funneled through Ukraine right back into Biden's back pocket. We've seen what has happened with Hunter Biden in Ukraine. We've seen a lot of this. We've seen a lot of this actually occurring. And for Bill Barr to actually step up to the plate and call him out for what it is very interesting. We all remember this guy. We all remember this guy that was appointed by Donald Trump himself, who actually went back on Donald Trump, pointed fingers back at Donald Trump and said Donald Trump was wrong in so many ways, shapes, or forms. This is the guy that disallowed Derek Chauvin a speedy trial. This is the guy that has been around for quite some time now, and has actually interjected himself in places where he didn't necessarily need to be, but he still did. He still did. And now that he's actually coming forward and actually calling Jamie Raskin out for his crap, it makes it very interesting to think that, you know, he's just that into actually telling, potentially telling the truth. We're not going to actually speculate that he's telling the truth about everything, but you know, when he actually comes forward and he starts pointing fingers the other way, it kind of all of a sudden makes you think and wonder. You're like, oh, well, maybe this guy isn't so bad. And I mean, I still don't really like him, but you know, still at the same point. Still at the same point. So, two huge scandals. This new revelation proves significant for two reasons. First, there's underlying scandal in the FBI's alleged failure to investigate the FD 1023 and FBI supervisory intelligence analyst Brian Otten's opening of the assessment August 2020 to discredit that information, which caused investigate activity to cease. Knowing that FD 1023 originated in Brady's Western District of Pennsylvania proves explosive because Grassley's whistleblower alleged that in September 2020, FBI headquarters placed the information contained in Otten's assessment in a restricted access subfile that only the particular agents who uncovered the CHS's info could access. How then could the FBI agents in Delaware further investigate the allegations? And those allegations, further detailed by Coomer on Tuesday, are shocking. A trusted confidential human source obtained information from the foreign national who claimed to have bribed then Vice President Biden. Coomer told the Federalist. So the CHS didn't just pass on information from some random third party. He spoke directly with the individual who claimed to have bribed Biden. FBI headquarters branding that information as disinformation without undertaking an appropriate investigation is outrageous, especially since the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office was directed to further investigate the FD 1023. The second scandal is equally as large because it reaches the top of FBI Director Christopher Wray. Wray may well have been in the dark about FBI headquarters falsely labeling the FD 1023 as misinformation and secreting it away from other agents. But framing the intel from the highly credible longtime FBI CHS is coming from Giuliani, reeks of a cover-up, and suggesting that Barr and Brady closed down the investigation into FD 1023 when it is instead sent to Delaware for further investigation is Sorry about that. I guess, had an internet glitch yet one more time every freaking night. So upsetting. This is so upsetting. It's so disturbing. I seen it happen. I watched the internet just us and go poop, and it started crashing. I watched one screen reload itself, and then everything else reset. And I knew it was going to kick me out and make me come right back in. Uh, Ray may have been in the dark, but FBI headquarters falsely labeling the FD 1023 as misinformation and seeking it away from other agents, but framing the intel from highly credible longtime FBI CHS is coming from Giuliani reeks of a cover-up and suggesting that Barr and Brady closed down the investigation into FD 1023 when it was instead sent to Delaware for further investigation is a cover-up. The more the FBI leaked the cover-up machine spins for President Biden, the worse the Bureau looks. Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican out of Iowa, told the Federalists upon learning of Barr's statement, enough is enough. It's past time for the FBI to come clean and show their work if they have any hope of salvaging their own credibility. Coomer went further, telling the Federalists the FBI is attempting a cover-up and Democrats are doing their bidding by lying to the American people. The FBI must produce this record to the House Oversight Committee's custody. Coomer continued, if not, we will take action on Thursday to hold Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress, given Barr's statement that should be the least of Wray's concerns. So hopefully tomorrow, a few lives today kept buffering for me. Yeah, I'm hoping it's not just me. I mean, though I didn't have issues early this morning with anything, with waking up. It seems odd that it just so happens to be halfway through this stream, the same as it did last night. It did the same thing and crashed. To get on with the article, though, given Barr's statement, it was Lisa Ray's concerns. When it comes down to it, that Barr is actually coming forward and actually talking out and speaking out against Jamie Raskin, that weasel himself, being that he's actually brought himself to that point of actually doing just that. It really seriously makes me wonder if they will actually bring Christopher Wray up for contempt of Congress, like they should. We shouldn't even have to question this. This is something that should have already been done, and they should have already had him up for questioning. But they hadn't. They hadn't had him up for questioning quite yet. I'm just trying to get my YouTube side to actually get back up. It looks like everything is working. It looks like everybody's been like I am back in live. So disturbing. I really, really don't know what's exactly going on, why it continues to keep on doing such a thing. Christopher Wray, we will continue to pay attention to Christopher Wray and the goings on with him. And whatever, I've talked about Christopher Wray several times, read different things that have come out of this corrupt FBI and what they're actually about and what they've been lacking at doing. And that's actually doing research or investigations into anybody and everybody. Instead of just focusing on one person with an uncooked box of pasta and seeing what sticks. Over and over again, we've seen this for the last 7-8 years. Just continuously going after Donald Trump. Oh, it must be him. Must be Donald Trump. Must be Donald Trump. No, it's not. It's you. It's the FBI. It's the FBI that's corrupt. It's the FBI that isn't doing their job. It's the FBI that continuously keeps on trying to cover up anything that Democrats have been doing. Because why? There's a good chance that they've been paid off. They've been paid off to continuously do what they're doing and not actually do what we need them to do and work for us. Work for us. Because that's exactly what it needs to be. So let's see. Let's remove that. Close that out. So we will make sure that we cover the apocalyptic haze that's engulfs New York for sure. I'm just disturbed. I'm disturbed right now because I'm so upset with the way my internet's been acting the last few nights. Fuck all the alphabet boys. Let's fight corruption and trim the fat from our debt. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Michael Hagan. I know, there's several things that between you and I, we share, and there's several things that we don't share, on differing opinions on certain things. When it comes down to it, through and through, I think that's exactly what we need to actually be looking at is removing just that these three-letter agencies, these alphabet boys, and just exactly do that. We need to actually eliminate the debt that's there, as opposed to just raising the ceiling over and over again to only spend more money and hand it over to the corruption of this U.S. government. It's probably from Twitch, the streaming issues. Twitch has updated their terms of service and streamers are losing their shit. Keeps leaving Twitch to go to YouTube and Kick now. They're taking your bandwidth. That's a good thought to go along with that. Yeah, that could be definitely something. I don't stream to either one of those platforms, Twitch or Kick. I've been told to stay off of Kick. And as far as Twitch goes, I know that they just updated a bunch of their shit where they actually scared off a lot of people from their platform, which that has to be scary for themselves to actually think that that's actually something in its own. So let's do this. I've talked about this a couple times. I know I have a couple shorts out about a particular issue. Experts warn of big problem as Biden administration prepares to crack down on stoves and furnaces. As the Biden administration continues its war on natural gas appliances, experts say consumers will be the losers. Stay off Kick. Why? I've just been told to stay off Kick, that it's not a good place to be. Grimsbar is the one that's told me several times, stay off. Just saying. What his reasonings were is I have no clue, but he just said to stay off. In May, the Biden administration boosted energy efficiency standards in gas stoves, setting the level that's above 96% of current gas stoves, according to Washington Examiner. In the coming weeks, the administration will use a similar tactic for residential gas furnaces. By updating energy standards for many carbon-emitting appliances, such as home furnaces, the Biden administration is working to save consumers money. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm said in a statement in June 2022. Furnaces would be required to meet 95% annual fuel utilization efficiency standards, which only about 40% of the current furnaces can meet, CNN reported last year. So as far as that goes, I pay a gas bill for heat, and then there's an electricity bill which pays for everything else. pays for everything else. So the difference between the natural gas being used and the electricity being used is that the natural gas per unit is actually just a little bit cheaper. And you'd actually save money by actually going with the natural gas. And that's, totally against their quote unquote carbon emitting appliances when it comes down to it. Uh, their thought on that is ridiculous, as most of uh, all the other appliances, the electricity that we'd be running off of are coal fire plants, which emit their own carbon emissions. It's really just ridiculously stupid on how they actually look at this. It really is. They look at things so freaking bass backwards. It doesn't make any sense. I got a wise woman in the chat. My bestie is coming over to take me to her house. Should I stay or should I go? She says I can take my dog. I mean, you do you, brother. And get it. If that's what you need, you do that. The Department of Energy said over 3 decades, consumers would save $30.3 billion, but on the average homeowner, that works out to above $5 a month. This is a classic example of one size not fitting all. Every home is different. Every homeowner is different, and people are best off having a wide range of choices. Right, exactly. You wide range of choices. You take away my choices. You tell me that I can't use. I don't normally use the heat, other than in the winter. I might turn it on. It doesn't go anything higher than about 68 degrees. In the summers when it gets super hot, I'll run fans, which will run off the electricity and not the natural gas anyway, that the air conditioner would. Um, though I will use the air conditioner when it gets too hot, but still doesn't go anything lower than about 68 degrees. So, I kind of, regulate myself through the year. Electricity wouldn't allow me to do that. Electricity would allow, would cost me a little bit more. And the boneheaded ideas really are just that, boneheaded. The efficiency standard would effectively outlaw non-condensing furnaces, and condensing alternatives would be the only ones available. Those are more efficient, but they cost more. The installation costs could be a big problem for some houses that are not compatible with condensing furnaces. The rule would take effect in 2029. So about, 5.5, 6 years before we would actually see a lot of this actually take place. A lot of the removal um, of gas stoves, um, furnaces, and be replaced by new and improved high efficiency electric stuff or whatever. Well, the interesting one is if they're going to go around and they're going to make this happen, a lot of places like your private home might not be as easy for them to actually control. But my apartment complex that I live in will be easier for them to control. It'll be easier for them to control, where they would actually be able to come in, do what they needed to do, tell me that I still have to pay the bill, and then probably raise my rent because they had to come in and actually do the job. Really ridiculous to actually think that they actually believe that this is actually something that will be good for all of us and the environment together. Hopefully, there's a lot of other removals long before then. Yeah, right. Um, like this whole current administration. I mean, oh, there was more. I'm sorry. I bumped that button. There you go. Richard Meyer, the Vice President of Energy Markets Analysis and Standards at the American Gas Association, told Fox News there is a hidden cost because homeowners would need to install new equipment to exhaust gas out of their home. What? Why would we need new equipment to exhaust gas out of our home? Because electricity wouldn't allow what the natural gas does. You would have different ways of exhaust where it's as opposed to just dissipating the way it does and filtering itself out. You'd actually have to uh, put in other measures to actually allow the electricity that's being used to actually exhaust itself. It's really kind of dumb. It's really kind of dumb that this administration believes that this is true and that this will actually work. You know, Kick is monetized now. It's 80-20 split. The streamer gets 80% of the money. Why would not streaming on another platform be a bad thing? Makes no sense. Where's Grim so I can go off on? I'd like to hear that conversation between the two of you. Really, I really would. It's pretty late for Grim. He's probably crashed. Hopefully tomorrow we can hear that conversation. What you have to actually say about it. Do we know who Myers is? Anyone? This guy? Does anybody know who he is? Do you know who he is? You can look him up. He said Biden administration effort in combat climate change would restrict the options and availability of the direct use of natural gas for consumers. A lot of policies we're seeing that are designed to restrict natural gas may end up having counterproductive result and increase the cost of consumers and could increase the emissions associated with energy use by those consumers. Francis Dietz, the spokesman for Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute, which represents heating equipment manufacturers, said consumers deserve choices. So, you know, you would have one level low enough where it would be more affordable for consumers, and others who felt they needed even more efficiency would still have some choices there. In an op ed National Review last year, Lieberman wrote that it is important to emphasize that these kinds of appliance mandates have no upside for consumers, only downside. Any homeowner who wants a condensing furnace would always be free to choose one with or without meddling by Washington. The only thing federal regulations do is force this particular choice on everyone, like it or not. Lieberman said the climate impact of the rules is based on long chain of exaggerated assumptions, including reliance on climate models with track record for significantly overstating actual temperature increases while also inflating the likely economic damage from the predicted warming. In reality, the proposed rules effect on future temperatures will almost certainly be too small to detect and far too small to make any difference, he wrote. We are committed to the truth and accuracy of all journalism. Read the editorial standards. So, you know, as far as that goes, I really seriously uh, find it very interesting to think that they actually have gone to the point to believe that this would actually be true in any way, shape, or form, that natural gas would be uh, less safe than electricity, than what comes out of all the coal fire plants. They're just making it easier for themselves to try transitioning us into what they like to call clean energy. And I don't believe that clean energy is really what they claim it to be. Um, so then Richard Meyer, the vice president of energy markets. Let's look him up real quick. Meyer. look him up and get a little bit more information on this guy in particular and what he's actually about. Vice President of Energy Markets Analysis and Standards of American Gas Association based in Washington, District of Columbia. Doesn't, not like he really has a huge amount of information out on him. There really isn't a lot about this guy in particular. And of course, when you actually look up Richard Meyer, Richard Meyer in itself is a fairly popular name. Even putting president of energy markets after it really, it comes up with a LinkedIn forum, but that's not a lot of information. Delivered critical analysis, insight to core issues, expertise, natural gas use, and industrial electrical power generation. Combined heat and power distribution generation technologies, residential, commercial, natural gas direct use, supply and demand fundamentals, methane greenhouse, gas emissions, natural gas system interaction, and integration of renewable energy and emerging technologies. Yeah, he really seriously has very little credential on how he actually got to where he's at. Though he's been there for 13 years, manager of policy analysis, managing director to vice president of energy markets, over the last, like I said, 13 years. Before that, he worked for ICF International, which is also fuel and technology group, include energy market analysis and climate related projects. So I mean, he's a global temperature guy, so he's totally into all that rigmarole to go along with clean energy, trying to push such a thing. Looks kind of goofy for sure. But like I said, not a whole ton of information on the guy for sure. I'd have to look him up again to see if I could come up with anything else. Okay, time out. Do we know who Myers is? Anyone? I mean, if 357, you know something I don't, please let me know. Transferring platforms, Frog. Be back in a second. All right, sounds good. Yeah, just the vice president of American Gas Association, right? Exactly, just that. Not really much more than that in particular. That being said, I think we're going to move on to one of the last stories that I actually have for tonight, which would be wildfires out of Canada. There's multiple. When I say multiple, like in the hundreds, amount of different fires that have actually have ignited in some way, shape, or form. It's actually gone to the point of where the air pollution over New York, New Jersey, and surrounding areas are pretty much in a blackout style situation, even during daylight. So then there you go. There's a nice picture of the New York skyline right across the harbor there. So when you actually see it, you're like, whoa, wait a minute here. That's disgusting, disturbing, and way too far. What's going on in Canada? It's nuts, right? So there you go. Apocalyptic haze engulfs New York City as Canadian wildfires push air quality to unprecedented levels, making the world's most polluted city. As a press conference held Wednesday, Mayor Eric Adams expressed his concern over the unprecedented air quality crisis that has engulfed New York City. The relentless spread of smoke from the Canadian wildfires has created a looming environmental crisis in the northeastern United States. The wildfires, which have been burning for weeks, have intensified, releasing massive amounts of smoke. Prevailing winds have carried the smoke southward, blanketing major metropolitan areas, including New York City. Air quality monitoring stations throughout the city have reported alarming levels of smog and other pollutants, well above the safe thresholds set by regulatory agencies. The dense smoke has reduced visibility, casting an eerie orange glow over the cityscape. Uh, Monday versus Wednesday, New York City skyline before and after the Canadian wildfire smoke choked out the city. You can you can see how on Monday, it looked like it was, pretty clean, clear, good looking city in itself. And we all know this is New York City. So it's got its own pollution level already. To see what it looks like today. Wow. Amazing amount of smoke that is actually engulfed New York City and everywhere nearby. Everywhere nearby. Now we all know there's a couple people that live in and around these areas. Moose, take care of yourself. T3, take care of yourself. You and your family. Make sure everybody's safe. Anybody else that lives in and around that area, we'll keep you in our thoughts. As this actually dissipates within the next day or two. Hopefully, a little bit sooner. Though, as you actually look at maps and graphs of what is actually coming through, it does look like there's another big swath coming through that could actually be just as bad, if not worse. Um, it's disgusting to actually see, and hopefully that most places are just like, nope, don't go outside, stay home, leave your windows closed, and do whatever you can to keep yourself safe. On Wednesday, New York City is ranked as the most polluted city in the world with an IQ Air, a Swiss technology company that measures and ranks air pollution. It ranked higher than Delhi, Baghdad, Kuwait, and Dhaka, according to The Independent. New Yorkers saw and smelled something that has never impacted us up to the scale before. Even as it was walking the streets, clearly you knew something was happening that was beyond normal. Adams during press conference last night at 10 p.m. The air quality index hit 218, a very unhealthy level. On the levels of health concern, it really sent shockwaves throughout the entire city in this region. And this morning at 7 a.m., the air quality index was 174 in the Bronx, and will remain around that level for at least another day. But this is an unprecedented event in our city, and New Yorkers must take precaution. The National Weather Service said hazardous air quality and widespread smoky conditions will persist through Wednesday afternoon and evening throughout the Northeast and Mid Atlantic as smoke associated with wildfires in Canada continues to push southward into the lower 48. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation issued an air quality health advisory for all 5 boroughs. New Yorkers stay inside, and all New Yorkers limit outdoor activity to the greatest extent possible. This is not the day to train for a marathon or do an outside event with your children. Stay inside, close windows and doors, and use air purifiers if you have them. If you are older and have heart or breathing problems, or an older adult, you should remain inside. And if you must go outdoors, wear high quality masks such as K95s. Uh, what? Oh, yeah, using the correct way this time. You can see plenty of different shots, videos. Just amazing amount of of smoke that you can't even see the buildings. They're just they're gone. They've disappeared. They've disappeared into this orange haze of smoke from this disaster that's going on in Canada. Now they're saying that there's multiple different fires that have gone on throughout that are going on throughout Canada in a whole. Think Suzanne said something earlier as I was first starting out. She gave a number 145 wildfires burning in Quebec alone. Just in Quebec alone. That's not all the fires that are up there. That's not all of them at all. The worst air quality in history due to the wildfires and climate cult. Amazing. You can't even see across the way there. You can barely see the horizon line on the other side. If that didn't scare you in itself, to not be able to see the things that you'd ever be seen before, and you're standing in it. So I mean, you have so much of a visual distance of of certain things that if it's that smoky that far away, it's that smoky around you as well, and you're breathing that shit in. This is a respirator, not a mask. Just saying. Yeah, I know. I know. But it's red ass. So we're just gonna we're gonna go along with what they're actually saying. Still, hopefully they're using them properly. Many areas in northern South Carolina, much of North Carolina, New York, Northern Virginia, much of Maryland, Delaware, East Pennsylvania, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Western New Hampshire are under air quality advisories. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy issued a statement. My team is in close coordination with the State Department of Environmental Protection as we vigilantly monitor the effects of the Canadian wildfires on air quality in our state as conditions worsen statewide. I strongly urge everyone, including those with heart or lung disease and elderly and the young, to stay safe and limit strenuous activities and the amount of time active outdoors today. Make no mistake, from the wildfires in Canada to those cropping up in increasing frequency and severity in our own backyard, these extreme weather events are tangible and devastating evidence of the intensifying climate crises. Stop it. As the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Forest Fire Service works tirelessly to protect our residents and properties across the state, we will continue to do our part by pursuing the bold actions of climate reality demands. They really believe that it has something to do with climate change? They really believe that? Do you believe that? Should we ask a question? Should we put up a poll? Let's do that. Let's put up a poll. Let's do a little bit of interaction. See how many of you actually think or believe that climate change is real. Like the global phenomena of climate change, not just temperature change from day to day, because we know that's real, but the actual climate change that they actually try pushing and saying is such a big thing. Oh, stop. Ask the community. Man. There you go. There you go. Go ahead, interact with that. Go ahead and touch my poll. Reach up, tap on it. Is climate change, the whole phenomena of climate change, real or not? Read your mind, Michael Hagan. I got you. I got you. I know what you're thinking. I think we're the that mind control stuff or whatever that a lot of people don't really believe in is potentially a thing. Is if you've been joining me for a regular basis now for quite some time, especially when it comes to these late night news stuff or whatever. And though we've had different thoughts and opinions on some of it, a lot of it's I'm going to say though, if the fires were climate or man. Oh, yeah, that's a good question in itself. Was it actually the climate change, or is this something that somebody intentionally started? Is this something that somebody actually did um, to cause harm to the wilderness, to the wildlife, to our health? And you see what's actually coming out of this. Um, how many Canadian fires are there right now? Let's see if we can get a direct answer from this. It says there are 423 active fires across Canada. 246 of them are out of control, according to the Canadian Intricacy Forest Fire Center. That's a lot. That's a lot. Um, what's did everybody go and interact with this? We got 4 votes. Anybody else want to interact with that before I go in that poll? It's currently at 50-50 at those 4 votes. 2 believe climate change, 2 believe that there isn't that the climate change phenomenon is just that fake. I'm going to end this poll. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. We'll go ask another question here. Oh, somebody else went. The 5th person said yes, climate change is real. Okay. I mean, 3 out of 5 are saying yes. 2 of you are actually, saying no. It's not a thing. I'll do this other poll here, and we'll actually ask if you think that this is are the fires from climate or man. Let's see, fires, climate made them, or man made them. That's that question. So ask that question. See how many of you actually decide to actually think about that. That's a crazy amount of a lot, right? It's a crazy amount of a lot for sure, especially when it's actually dumping that much pollution into the air, where it's actually causing daytime blackouts of just smog. When it actually comes down to them actually saying that New York had actually risen to the number 1 worst polluted, city in the world currently. That being said, hidey, hidey, hidey ho. Good to see you. Glad you're with us. More than 100 wildfires are burning across Canadian border in Quebec and Ottawa. The more than 9.3 million acres are charred. The Weather Channel's Stephanie Abrams said on CBS Mornings Wednesday that the smoke that was since drifted to the U.S. could last for a while, for a few days, for a week. It could be quite some time for that to actually be going on. Morning, Nix. How you doing? Good to see you, dude. Um, I'm gonna look at a couple more of these questions, see if it gives me anything else. So, over the past 6 months or 6 weeks, massive wildfires have spread across Canada, causing mass evacuations and burning through more than 3.3 million hectares of land, larger than the state of Maryland. So I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot of land, a lot of area that's being engulfed by these wildfires. Um, well, most of the fires in the western provinces are under control. The fires have now opened new fronts spreading to eastern provinces of Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Ontario. It just seems really strange and odd to believe that these fires, whether they were man-made or they were climate-induced, would continue to spread as far as they have and have no control. Now, I did catch Karine Jean-Pierre's little talk today where she actually said that the United States is well aware of the situation in Canada and would not be opposed to actually sending help to help them control their wildfires, um, as they think that we have enough people to actually go ahead and do that, uh, but not stay here and take care of potentials of our own. Because second they're not here, what happens in California when it gets really hot? Some asshole goes and throws a cigarette or something out, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got a big fire. Um, NBC News says more than 400 fires are burning in Canada, according to Canadian Integracy Forest Fire Center in Quebec. More than 150 forest fires. I don't know how they actually count each forest fire. If it has to be so many trees to be considered a forest fire, so much area before they actually be say, oh well, that one's counted as its own. If there's space in between, or how that really works. I'm gonna look up some. There's a couple channels out there that have actually been producing imaging of the smoke. See if we can't come up with an image of where the smoke is going, where it's coming from. And of course, nothing right off the top. Really? Really, YouTube? From a day ago? I know it's something from a day ago. I thought it was something from today. Maybe something from today showing me actual fires. Yeah, we'll do this 5-minute bit before we actually take off. This is from ABC.
This morning, from bad
The
to
airplane in the
worse,
air.
tens of millions of Americans are
Almost.
on alert for unhealthy air. The New York Yankees game last night smelling like a campfire. New York at one point seeing the worst air quality of any city on earth. The smoky haze coming from wildfires in Canada is blotting skylines from Manhattan to Cleveland.
We're really seeing these.
And the interesting one is as these fires have actually moved themselves from west to east. In last week before, we were actually told to actually not go outside ourselves here in South Dakota because of the amount of smoke or smog that was in the air, and to watch the inhalation. So I was unable to actually go outside, touch grass with Tadpole to actually get him outside. to get him the exercise he needs. You know, and you actually see it, you know.
Exceptional levels that are traditionally seen in really, really populated cities.
More than 400 wildfires are burning across Canada, from the western provinces to Quebec, turning the sky bright orange. Smoke seeping across the border, prompting air quality advisories for at least 80 million Americans as far
Thought
south
the
as North
non-human beings
Carolina.
took Koolfrogg
One
again.
expert saying
Yeah,
if
I
you're
know.
exposed to the poor air quality in New York for 24 hours, it could be equivalent to smoking 6 cigarettes.
The immediate health risks are worsening of asthma and worsening of allergy symptoms. It can happen immediately in exposure to this type of air quality.
Vulnerable people are warned to stay inside. Scientists monitor unhealthy air from wildfire smoke by measuring a particle known as PM 2.5, which is small enough to get past your airway defenses and cause breathing problems. A recent study at Stanford University found in the last decade there's been a 27-fold increase in the number of people living in areas with an unhealthy amount of PM 2.5 at least 1 day per year. Officials in Canada say half of the country's wildfires are burning out of control. Andrea Fujii, ABC News, New York.
All right.
We're gonna actually cut it there. We don't need to listen to anything else that these fools have to say out of ABC. But you know, disturbing in itself to actually see the air quality has actually dropped to even worse levels than what they were actually stating there. It's really scary to actually think what actually came out of this. Let's go end this poll. Looks like 7 votes. There's 7 of you here, so and if you haven't hit that vote up, go ahead, hit it real quick. I'm gonna end that poll. Looks as though out of the 7 votes, 86% say that there are most likely man-made fires that are, you know, ruining Canadian forests. You know, we need trees. We need trees to actually breathe, to actually create the oxygen we need to actually breathe. So, you know, burning them down in itself can be dangerous, which would cause mass evacuations across each and every single area where there's a potential fire. Which I'll keep everybody in Canada in our thoughts and prayers. Hopefully, they're all safe and they can actually keep themselves indoors temporarily to allow the smoke to pass. Let's hope that this isn't an extended ordeal, and we can actually move past it. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. There you go. 86%, 85% say man-made. 14% say climate made them. The 7 votes. And that's why we like everybody's opinion, because everybody gets to have their own opinion. We enjoy that so much here. If y'all haven't done so already, please hit that like button. Share it out. Hit the thumbs up over on that Rumble side. Let everybody know how much you enjoy the content that we actually bring you every day. I will be back tomorrow morning with Talking Trash and Truth for another episode of Waking Up. Thank you all so very much for being here. Love y'all. Later. We'll give you
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.